Hello, I am Brittany or Nerdy Little Collective, and today I am here with author Kaycee King to talk about their books that they are releasing here on June 2nd and also ones that they already have released as well. So, as we're getting started, Kaycee, can you please tell me a bit about yourself and your books?
Sure. Um, I've been writing most of my life, but I would say I probably just got good at it in the last few years with this series that I've got coming out, especially, I would say. I'm 36 and I live in a really rural area, and I have a degree in English. Those are kind of the basics, I suppose, about myself.
Now, how would you say that your own identity plays into the writing of your characters?
Oh, very much so. I love to put little pieces of myself in every character. Especially I have one character, the one that we kind of touched base over. I have a non-binary character, and he has celiacs and bipolar disorder, and I myself have celiacs. I'm not diagnosed with any mood disorders, but when I was researching this character, I actually kind of was like, "Ooh, that sounds a lot like me." So I was able to kind of channel my own experiences into that particular character, especially. But I throw in everybody. One of the characters, Sam, in my first book, is closeted and hiding, and I kind of did my own period of my life influence that quite a bit, whereas his counterpart comes to terms with being bisexual, which is something I also had to go through. And I did later in life a lot like that character as well. So I always put little pieces of my own experiences and identity into my characters.
I think it's definitely easier to write characters that you yourself resonate with in general. So I understand the putting little bits of yourself in each of these characters. Uh, you are currently working on publishing four different books, like I mentioned before, on June 2nd. What inspired these books and the desire to publish them all at the same time?
Well, so I started writing them. The first book I started writing in 2022. And that was actually my first attempt at writing characters of my own. I started out writing in fan fiction, which I think a lot of authors actually do. Uh, so that was just kind of a door opening for me. And then I found all the characters so interesting, and I kind of set it up where I always had in my mind, I'm going to write more about them. But I didn't get around to that until the end of 2024, I believe. And I kind of had a bit of a mental episode, we'll say, and I buried myself in writing, and I wrote the other three books plus my other Western that I published recently, like all within the span of about a year. And they were originally on Inkit, but I had a few friends who encouraged me to self-publish them, so I decided I would. And I've heard mixed things about doing the four at once. Some people say it's kind of a spoiler because of the plot of the fourth book. But I decided to do it that way because a lot of times people start series, and when they don't have the next book available, they just don't get read. So that was kind of my thought process behind that.
Yeah, it's definitely tough waiting a year for your favorite series to come about.
Yeah.
So, I know you mentioned that you kind of put a bit of yourself into your characters, but do you have a specific character that was easiest to write? And why did they come easily to you?
Probably I would I would say a tie between characters. Adam, who is kind of the main character of the first two books in the series, because I did come out of the closet around that time, and I didn't take long to come out of the closet once I had accepted myself. And so I found him easy to write because he's this very unreliable character. because he's not being honest with himself about himself, and I know how that is. So I think that was very easy for me to write. And then Oliver, with his mental health struggles, was very easy for me to write too, because it's just something I have struggled with my entire life. And it's very honest. I think I've had a lot of people reach out to me about it, but I think just because I've been there, those two were super easy for me to tap into.
And kind of on the flip side, which character would you say was the hardest for you to write?
Mike, for sure. That's Oliver's counterpart because he's just not like me really at all. He's very mild, and I had a little trouble. I'm like, how am I going to make this guy interesting?
So he's the one that has the least amount of you in it?
Yeah, absolutely, by far. Yes.
So what would you say is your favorite thing about writing?
It's cathartic for me, I think, because I I use it as a way to kind of make sense of the world around me because I do contemporary. So I always set these books for the most part where we're at right now in this moment in time. And obviously, this is a challenging moment if you're an LGBTQ person. So I just find it really cathartic because I can write characters overcoming or at least finding a way to be okay in the way the world is. And I think that's, it's powerful. I hope readers feel that way as well, not traumatized, but that's my favorite is just it makes me feel better.
And I know you also do your own art, right?
Yeah.
So do you find it challenging to do both the art and the writing for your books?
Yes, it's very tiring. Um, I actually kind of started in the art community because I was drawing the characters and kind of talking about them before I wrote them. So I'm in an interesting space online, really. I see the book world and I see the art world, and I'm just like right in the middle of it, kind of. But I would say it's just the hardest thing is it's really exhausting, but I have fun doing it, so it's a good thing too.
That's good. I mean, fun things are often exhausting, so
Yeah, they are. They are.
so would you say that you kind of mentioned this, that your characters came to you as the actual, art, physical version of themselves before they came to you from the writing space?
Yeah, it kind of helps me, I think, to and I'm glad I'm able to, it's not something every author can do, but something about like coming up with the physical design of them and kind of matching it to the personality I'm envisioning really helps me. And then I do find their personalities while I'm writing them too. Like I'll have kind of some basic things in mind, but I always leave room while I'm writing to discover who these characters are because it seems to work really well for me narratively. I don't know why, but it does.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite genre to write and why, or what draws you in about this genre?
Um, well, I'm sure you saw I've had a bit of a crisis about genre. But um, so I straddle genres. I like writing romantic couples, because I'm interested in those dynamics. But I write contemporary, like I said, real world problems. Other than the Western, it's a dystopia in the future, but they're dealing with the same problems. It's very much the same issues. So it's I like I guess that the safety of the romantic couple and the chaos of the real world. So I really do enjoy, and I think it's a bit literary. Most of my fiction's very character driven. Uh, I do use plot, but most of my stories are a lot more compelling because of how the characters are reacting to things and responding to each other. So that's what I would say makes it a little more literary. And I just think people are interesting, so I like exploring how people think and what makes them tick.
I think that having a mix between character driven and plot driven is really nice. I know if I looked at my story graph, I'm sure a lot of the things would be character driven just because it's interesting. The plot might be interesting, but to me, I find it interesting seeing how the characters interact with the plot. So,
Yes.
like you said, your non-binary character might feel differently from the one that you had struggles writing before. So I think that's a really powerful way to actually navigate
Yes.
the writing and reading space. Uh, Now, you've mentioned a little bit about your Western book.
Mhm.
Can you tell a bit about that one?
Yeah. So I actually took a course when I was in college, two courses that helped me write it. One was on Native American horror literature, and the other was on African American Westerns, because a lot of people don't know that it's actually was first rooted in African American culture before it became your typical idea of cowboy culture. So I wanted to kind of take the things I learned from those classes. We discussed how there were representations, of course, of white authors that were not awesome, and I was conscientious of that. I'm very white. Here I'm turning all red because I'm nervous, but I wanted to do something kind of academic with it from a queer perspective. So I did very tropey things. You see things like train robberies, and there's a big showdown in the old western town, and there's a saloon and all those things. But I'm really subverting everything because I've got this very masculine, macho cowboy who's not afraid of anything except that he's actually really terrified, and he's bisexual, and he's extremely traumatized, right? So it subverts that idea of Western masculinity. And then with Alex, I think I used the opportunity to introduce what I know. I've written research and historical documents on the tribes here, the Shoshone Bannock tribes. So I went with what I learned from that to kind of show some of the culture, and then also bake in some of the history about colonialism and those kinds of things, and kind of just subvert everything, having, the cowboy and the Shoshone Bannock person become romantic and involved, and they take down the fascists, and it's very exciting and satisfying.
Ah, yes. Take down the fascists. Are you currently working on any other books?
Yes, I just finished a huge one and I'm taking a break. This one is a lot more literary fiction. I would say I've kind of moved away from romance because it's taking a look at a couple who, it's like a love at first sight, got married quick, spent nearly 20 years together, but they're both deeply traumatized. And the novel is about how there's this intergenerational trauma affecting these two inside of their marriage, and they wind up splitting up because one of the characters cheats, and they come together though to work on a project later because they're professionally intertwined, and realize they maybe want to see if they can work through their issues as individuals and together. You don't know if they'll work through it. You don't even know if you want them to at some point. Um, because it's a very honest look, I think, at how families influence our lives, even when they're not physically there. So it's a lot about the role of silence and the influences of people around us, and how these two kind of fall apart and try to get back together.
Sounds sweet.
Thank you.
So
It's
kind of a second chance romance almost.
sort of, but I will say it's not romanticized. I mean, I took a lot of my own experience as a married person, and there are times where they are both wrong and they're not kind to each other, and you're kind of like, ugh, do you have any business being together, you know?
Yeah, fair. And I know your website also mentions that you like different hobbies such as photography, those kinds of things. Can you talk a bit about those?
Oh, yes, yes. So when I'm not writing, I love wildlife photography. I've actually had my photos featured in some things for like Audubon Society. And I've won some awards. I photograph like grizzly bears and owls and hawks and stuff like that. And I love nature and getting outside, and it's a way I can kind of share those experiences. Like that's probably the thing I'm most known for inside our family is like, oh, the pictures.
Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't think I'm all that interesting, but I really appreciate you interviewing me. And I guess I would just like to say that I'm really grateful that I live in a time and a place where I can even self-publish and self-publish stories, queer stories, because I'm thinking even when I was growing up, it was the only kind of queer content you could get was very coded. I think one of the first books I ever read was P.S. Your cat is dead, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on here?" And it's just it's coded. So now things are a lot more open and we can tell these stories. And I guess that's my final thought I'd like to say is I'm grateful I live in a time where we can share our stories, and I hope that people enjoy them.
I just want to thank you very much for taking your time to be part of this interview. It's really fun to interview indie authors and see the different perspectives that they bring to the table. So I just wanted to thank you and tell everybody again to remember your books that are being published on June 2nd. So you can get the whole series on June 2nd for that.